Coming up on this episode of DL Weekly, a tribute to a Disney legend has come to the resort, a fan-favorite parade has returned.
An atmospheric storm causes chaos at the resort. We talk to former Walt Disney World Ambassador Christopher and more. DL Weekly starts now.
Well, hello there. Welcome to our unbirthday party. For your safety, please be sure to stay listening with your hands, arms, feet, and ears inside the podcast. And please, do give Tag and Teresa easier trivia questions. Well, it seems DL Weekly is about to begin. Have a most wonderful time. Perhaps tea time.
Well, hello and welcome to this episode of DL Weekly for the week of February 7th, 2024. I'm Teresa Urban.
And I'm Tag Bushman. We'd like to thank everyone who supports the show. This week, we would like to give a special shout out to Knox W., Aaron S., Bill S., and Bethany W. Thank you for supporting the show. If you would like to help support the show and make sure that we can keep bringing you the latest news and information, discussion, and interviews about Disneyland, head on over to dlweekly.net/support.
Now let's get to the news. A unique tribute has been set up between the Hollywoodland Churro Cart and Mickey's PhilharMagic. Disney legend Floyd Norman, Disney's first African-American animator, has a window display honoring his career and legacy. A collection of the film cans featuring some of the movies he worked on, including The Sword in the Stone, Mulan, Monsters, Inc., and more, are part of the display.
So this, I think, is even cooler because we've now met Floyd Norman at some events we've gone to. So the fact that this is there, and of course this is to go with the Celebrate Soulfully celebration that's going on there. But they've got a great little write-up about his career. They've got all these cool movie cans, like Teresa was saying, that have all these different things he's worked on. Sleeping Beauty, Jungle Book,
of course.
I had to put Sword of the Stone in the read because I figured you would like that. And then just like some scenes and some drawings and stuff from that, and like a little movie projector. And then it looked like, at least when this photo that we have linked in the show notes was taken, it looked like the Sword in the Stone was actually playing. Look at that Merlin.
Yeah, and then there's like, it looks almost kind of like a storyboard setup type thing in the background there. And there's an animator's desk with a partial sketch on it. I just think, why have they not done something like this before? I think this is so cool and so perfect that they're highlighting Disney animators, especially over by the animation. It's near the Animation Academy. Yep. Like, come on. How has this not been done before? I love that Floyd is the one that they're featuring first. Yeah. He's a really kind, really down-to-earth guy, and he's been a part of Disney. Like, he is just such a big part of Disney animation. If you haven't had a chance, he does have a documentary film about him. If you learn more about him, he's a really incredible guy, if you haven't. But yeah, just, I love this. I love this. I love that he's the first one. I want them to do more of this and feature, because these people created all of the iconic characters and scenes of our childhoods. You know, that's just wild to me.
And in us talking to him too, one of the things that was really cool, I thought, about Floyd was, we asked him, well, let's be honest, I asked him because Teresa normally doesn't ask these type of questions, so I went right for it. And I said, what was it like being an African-American individual working? Like, was it weird? Did people treat you differently? And he's like, no, they didn't care. We all just did things. And I thought that was really cool that he didn't seem to experience any of that as an animator way back, doing in-betweening and animation on Sleeping Beauty and then working on some other things. He also looks amazing for 88 years old, by the way. And he is such a great, if you ever get the opportunity to see him at any of the events, he was at the Marceline event that we went to. He was also at at Walt's Barn?
Walt's Barn, yeah.
So the few times we've seen him,
we
was great.
Just happened to see him 3 times last year because he was at one of the Disney Anna events. He was just there as a guest. He wasn't being featured. He wasn't doing a presentation. He was just there as an attendee. Yeah. And then that was the first time we got to meet him. Then he was at Marceline. He was the featured speaker at the Marceline event. And then, when we went to Walt's Barn, he was there as well. And I feel very fortunate because we got to chat with him at all 3 events. We got to quickly chat with him at the Disney Anna event, got to chat with him more in depth in Marceline, and then also a little bit at Walt's Barn. But Walt's Barn is where I finally brought what I'm now lovingly calling my adult Disney autograph book, and Floyd's the first person that signed my book, and he did a little sketch of Mickey in there for me too, which I'll cherish forever. Super cool.
Well, a signature part of a day at Disneyland is the parade. While Magic Happens has returned after the hiatus from before the holidays at the resort, some smaller changes to some of the costumes have been made, like smaller headwear for the first unit dancers. Currently, the parade runs once a day at 5:30 p.m.
I was just so happy that they brought this back because it's such a great parade. So much fun. The music is so catchy. And the floats are just beautiful. And it's got such a positive feel in general, and everyone loves it. We're tag scrolling through, and we've got Merlin being his Merlin self and just being crazy and awesome. But it's just such a feel good parade. Not that there's parades necessarily that aren't feel good, but as soon as that music starts, everybody's just so excited. You can feel the electricity.
And I remember feeling dubious about when they had performed it for us at D23 back in 2021.
Just the song.
Yeah, because it was just the song. It was well, that seems a little interesting.
It's hard to understand it when you hear just the song of things. Think of if you hear just the song from fireworks without also experiencing the fireworks. It's just different, especially if you have no idea what the show is really going to be about. So the song makes so much more sense now that we've seen it performed along with the parade.
What do you think of the costume changes? I'm trying to pull up photos that we took when we were there that have the costumes.
The thing that's interesting to me is I don't know if I would have noticed that they had smaller headwear necessarily, but as soon as the Disney food blog pointed that out in their article and we kind of paid closer attention, it is different headpieces. I don't think it takes away from anything. There was one of the women's headpieces that was quite large that I don't see in this new version of the show. Let me pull it up because I took a zillion photos of this one. Yep, that one. They just have little top hats now instead.
Yeah. I'm just looking at a photo, and they did have some larger things at the beginning. I'm just trying to see these better. They look like boats or something. I don't know. They're very large, but they don't have them anymore. They kind of took care of those. So, but you're right. You're not gonna. It's not a difference enough that you're gonna notice and be wait a minute, what's going on there? But I'll tell you though, the performers in this show give it their all. Like every Disney parade. So if you haven't seen it before, definitely go see it. Looks like it's just as magical as ever. For sure.
Natives of California are not used to the amount of rain that has been happening in Southern California. So much rain from the atmospheric river resulted in the resort closing early a couple of nights due to a state of emergency in Orange and other surrounding counties.
So it's interesting because obviously I grew up in California and we weren't used to getting crazy amounts of rain. And Southern California is even less used to getting that type of rain, and really there's just not. It's kind of like when we in the Midwest talk about people in the South when they get snow, when everything shuts down. It's like they're just not prepared for it. Their systems are not designed to deal with all of this rain. And then of course in the last few years we've had all the fires and stuff like that, so it's harder for the rain to soak in. So crazy amounts of rain, and I'm glad that Disney decided to close down early and let cast members go home and spend time with their families and be safe.
Definitely. It has been interesting because I've been watching on Instagram and some YouTubers that have been at the parks with the rain. And even our friend Philander shared a photo this morning. And it's raining. The rain, it's very hard. It's not what we experienced in December when it was kind of more of a
normal rain,
like a mist rain. Or a heavy mist. Because it wasn't even like there was droplets. Whereas this... It picks up in the camera, you can see the drops, you can see the puddles, and there's flooding, so people have their rain boots on, and they're prepared with their ponchos and everything, so I'm just happy that everyone's trying to stay safe, and that Disney, like you said, is being proactive and thinking about the cast as well as the guests when they're making the decision to close early.
Yeah. Well, Magic Key holders have a cute new accessory to add to their collections. A Stitch Magic Key straw clip features Stitch holding a pink heart to his chest and is attached to a pink clip with a purple charm with the Magic Key logo on it. The clip will be available on Thursday, February 8th. No word on the price or locations as of the recording of our podcast.
I don't know what it is about this crazy little blue alien dude, but man, is he cute. And I'm not even a straw clip kind of person, but I mean, I would get this straw clip. He's adorable. He's holding a little heart against his chest. There's a purple magic key holder tag logoed thing with it. I don't know. There's something about it.
It is cute. I will say we're going to get some haters probably, or some feedback.
You're going to get some haters.
But like, I'm just not a huge Stitch
That's okay.
fan.
You don't have to be a Stitch fan.
Yeah.
More Stitch for the rest of us.
Well, they've been using Stitch in a lot more things lately, so I guess there's something to be said for that.
He's a crazy little dude. Well, it's that time again for our friend Eric over at Concierge to catch us up on other Disney news.
Hello, everyone. This is Eric Johnson with Concierge, and welcome to the D180. While Ted and Teresa cover all things Disneyland, in the D180 we take a spin around the rest of the Disney universe, and we do it in 180 seconds. Let's jump right in. We start this week in Walt Disney World, where prices are falling at an alarming rate. Disney announced this week that they're heavily discounting many of their hotel stays, most nights from March 25th through June 29th. I'll start with the biggest discount at the Boardwalk Inn. Resort View rooms are going for $419 a night. For context, this discount is well over 30% off a normal night's stay. The Boardwalk is one of my favorite resorts at Walt Disney World. It's within walking distance of both Epcot and Hollywood Studios. There's Skyliner access close by if you don't feel like walking. There's boat access nearby if you also don't feel like walking. Seriously, it's one of the best resorts around. But why the discount? Boardwalk is going through some renovations at this time, and so their super cool lobby is getting its upgrade during this time period, so you'll have to deal with some dust. Still, it's super worth it. If you're going to Walt Disney World this spring, check out the deals. Not to be outdone, the Caribbean Beach Resort is discounting standard view rooms over 40% during the same time period. This place is relaxing and secluded, but it also has the advantage of Skyliner access to two parks. Rooms at $229 per night makes this one of the best deals around. Again, it's because some areas are under construction and one of the 6 pools at the resort is closed. There are still 5 more, people, and it's 40% off of the normal price. All right, you get the point. Many other resort hotels also have deals going on from March through June. Ask one of our planners to lay out your options. And now it's time to pop on over to Rome for a bit. Maybe a week, maybe 2 weeks. The Disney Dream is going to spend the summer roaming about the Mediterranean. It used to be said that all roads lead to Rome. This summer you can fly there and then depart there via Disney Cruise Line to ports all around the region. Sailings on the Dream are 7 to 11 nights per cruise. The longest trips visit 9 different destinations around the area: Italy, Greece, Turkey, Malta, Spain. Soak up the sun on multiple beaches. Soak up the classic culture of the Mediterranean as you visit centuries-old mansions. Soak up the finest cuisine around in the parts of the world that basically invented fine cuisine. There's a lot of soaking to do here, people. If you have time, 11 days popping around the south of Europe seems like a pretty good way to spend it. As always, you can find plenty to do on the Disney Dream itself. Shows, fireworks, movies by the pool, clubs for kids of all ages, 3 different pools. 11 nights mean you can try pretty much everything that this classic Disney Cruise Line ship has to offer. Give us a call today and we'll give you the skinny on the Dream's next port of call. I hope you enjoyed our quick spin around the rest of the Disney universe. If you would like to learn more about these Disney adventures or just have a few questions, please come on over. Visit the social media and websites of both DL Weekly and us, their official travel planners, concierge. We look forward to planning something special for you and yours. I'm Eric Johnson, and this has been your D180.
Thanks, Eric.
I up, down, touch the ground. I think of things to chew, like honey and milk and chocolate. With a hefty, happy appetite, I'm a hefty, happy poo. A rumbly in my tumbly means it's time for snacks.
Well, this week for Snack Chat, we are taking kind of
We're taking a detour.
We don't have a lot of Snack Chat to talk about, but one thing we did omit from our list of goings-on at the Disneyland Resort of unofficial things, I don't know how we did this, we left out Adventureland Day. Well, Adventureland Day is another fun unofficial day coming in March. On March 3rd this year, dress up in your best jungle attire and be ready to partake in treasure hunts and more fun. This
has been on our radar for a while to go and experience because Adventureland's one of our favorite parts of the park, let's be honest. And Adventureland Day, I feel like the people that go and experience Adventureland Day, they are in it. It is like a day. It is an experience. It's not just dressed in your finest Adventureland garb and that's that. They've got scavenger hunts that they do throughout the day. They do a tiki room sing-along. They have a song that they get together in a group and sing together. They do, of course, the group photos, but everybody dresses, maybe not everybody, vast majority dress in their Adventureland best. Fresh Baked actually ran into them last year during Adventureland Day and did a really nice video and kind of was showing what Adventureland Day is about. There's people that kind of really get into it and have their own versions of the SEA where they've kind of created their own characters that they're kind of it's almost not, I don't want to say cosplay, not what do you, it's almost like role play a little bit. Sure. That they get into. I mean, it's just so, I don't know, I think that's so fun and so cool. Right there, the Royal Exploration Corps is who he ran into, and they have their own little version of
this,
kind of like the SEA. But yeah, it's kind of like their own society, their own adventurers club. I think it's so fun.
Yeah, this looks like a lot of fun. Of course, who doesn't like Adventureland and all of that stuff? Some of these people that dressed up look really amazing. Obviously, dressing in that kind of safari stuff. Oh yeah, look, they even have a shot from Fresh Baked on there.
Is. We have had the wonderful pleasure of getting to know a couple people that participated in Adventureland Day, and one of them is really, really involved with Adventureland Day itself. But we've talked to, of course, Alex from the Backside of Water back in episodes 274 and 275. We just talked to him about his time working on the Jungle Cruise, as well as other attractions when he worked at Disneyland, plus his podcast, The Backside of Water. We even talk a little bit about Adventureland Day. And we also spoke with Skipper Freddie, who is also a former Jungle Cruise skipper, but he is very involved with Adventureland Day. And to learn more about his time there and hear about our talk with him about Adventureland Day, be sure to check out episodes 268 and 269. But super fun. One of these years, for sure. Maybe? I don't know. Maybe next year? I don't know. Maybe the year after? We got to figure it out because we got to make it happen sooner rather than later.
I love these collages and stuff that they have, and all these people, this must have been when Galaxy's Edge opened or something, and they have this.
No, that's just where they lined up and did their group photo at.
Wow. Mm-hmm. Just crazy. What a fun day and a fun event. So we have those linked in the show notes, adventurelandday.com if you want to get some information, or they have a page on Facebook or their Instagram account. We have those all linked in our show notes.
Well, back in episode 222, we spoke with our friends Debbie and Steve from Designer Park Company about some of the fun things that they're creating. The original, of course, was their rope drop bag that I use and completely love. Since then, they've come out with the Master Gracie, which is the kind of more male version of the bag, just a different blend. And just recently they came out with a crossbody version of the bag that can be a crossbody / you can then convert it into a backpack, so you can wear it 2 different ways. Super fun. But the coolest part about them is how kind they are as people, as well as just how this all evolved from their love of going to theme parks. They created Designer Park Co. because they were in search of the perfect park bag and they weren't able to find something that met all of their needs. So they designed one, because right? That's what you do.
Oh, yeah.
Just incredible.
When I think of something that I want and doesn't exist, I just contact vendors and do all that stuff.
Seriously, it was a really amazing story. Debbie kind of gave us a peek behind the curtain as to how they made this all happen. If you'd like to check them out, and if you'd like to get one of their awesome products for your next park trip, Go check them out, designerpartcode.com, and be sure to use our promo code DLWeekly to get 10% off your purchase. Tag, that is the exact bag that I have been eyeing up and think that...
The crossbody bag?
The crossbody bag, because it's like the rope drop bag, but it's thinner. And I love that
it's called
Tag,
the Park View.
The Park View, that's fun. As you know, Tag, I don't have a lot of stuff in my bag normally.
No.
Usually I just need a bag to carry my water bottle around. So this is a little bit thinner, so I'm thinking this would be might be a better fit for my park needs. And then I can use my rope drop bags when it's cooler out and I need to have a jacket or a sweatshirt along with me, because then I can that will fit in the rope drop. I don't know if the Park View will fit that or not. I'll let you all know if I get one. How big it is, if I can fit like a Spirit jersey in it in addition to my water bottle and other stuff. But I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, I like the idea of the crossbody bag kind of a situation. So that could be good. We should have them back on again and talk about it. So
because they just had their 2-year anniversary. So they talked to us right when the company was just beginning.
That's true.
So it's been 2 years that they've been going on this crazy journey together. And yeah, it's amazing what all they've done just in that short amount of time.
Absolutely.
DL Weekly announces the boarding of the Trivia Express, non-stop star speeder service to the moon of Endor. All passengers, please prepare for immediate boarding.
Hello. Welcome to Trivia Land. How is it going for you two this week?
Well, we're a little lost since we took a detour from Snack Chat to talk about Adventureland
But
Day.
somehow we made it to Trivia Land.
Well, thank goodness. Fortunately, you might not be the only ones lost this week, but you'll have to wait for that a little bit later. Our first question this week comes from listener Michael R., and the question is, on Buena Vista Street, right after you pass the 5 and Dime store, you'll see on the second floor a sign for an optometrist.
Oh, boy.
The sign reads, iWorks, Special Optometrist Processes. See more clearly Friday. What is this sign a reference to?
iWorks. I feel like it's a shout out to UB.
And how did you? I'm sorry. How did you come across that?
Because it's iWorks.
Yes.
I did just have to explain that, didn't I?
Yes.
I think you did.
Well, I was thinking about it, and I was. So when James started reading, I had the vision in my head because I could picture this area.
Sure.
And so my mind was caught up in thinking about the visual of it, and so I was having a hard time keeping track of what he was saying. So that makes sense. And now
I think it's a shout out to UB.
Yeah,
iWorks.
I will.
You're hitching.
I will see the same thing as you do.
Sharing that same optometrist. Let's go to our second question from Ethan K., who pulled data from DisneyDiary.com in 2018. And the question is, how many corn dogs are eaten every year in Disneyland?
Oh my. How many corn dogs are eaten in Disneyland?
Every year.
Every year.
Oh, I couldn't even tell you how many are in a day.
I'm going to say, let me see, I got to do math.
Oh, Lord.
Let's say there's
math? Didn't realize there was math in Trivia Land.
I'm going to say 18,000.
Oh, no, sir. I think it's much more than that.
Well, then pop out a number.
I'm saying 1 million.
It is not 1 million corn dogs. It is not 1 million.
It's probably
corn
more
dogs.
than 1 million. What did you say? 5,000?
I said...
In a year?
I said... What did I say, James?
18,000.
18,000.
Wait a minute.
He said 500 a day is what he said. There's maybe an hour.
No, I did something wrong.
Clearly.
I don't know
I think
how
you
I
did a
got
lot
into this.
wrong.
Hold on a second. What did I say? 18,000?
I'm pretty sure you said 18,000.
That is not right. I don't know. I had a
I think you forgot.
I was
something.
eating a corn dog and wasn't thinking about it. Let's say I don't think it's
Nope, you locked in at 5,000.
I'm going to say 500,000.
500,000. Okay.
500,000.
Million, 500,000.
That's 1,500 corn dogs a day. There's a lot of treats for people to eat.
I don't know.
All right.
How many churros do you think they sell in a year?
We might have that for a later
That might
question.
be a later
Anyway.
question.
All right, let's move on to our third question. And I am curious if you can tell me what are the points of interest in order that you see, like that are next to you as you walk through the now closed Haunted Mansion queue from entrance to living
The
room.
points
When
of
you say
interest.
living room, what do you mean?
The living room.
Like the foyer where
No.
you come in before you get in the stretching room?
Nope.
What's the living room?
The living room. That's like where the nice little portraits are that you walk
Oh, the
past
portrait
as you
hall.
go.
Portrait
through.
gallery.
Yeah, sure.
Okay,
It's the
so
living room.
so what do you pass before the portrait gallery?
From
Yeah.
the entrance.
Yeah,
Okay.
in order. And
Now-
like the things that are like genuinely there that you're supposed to be by.
Well, there's the
Are
lawn.
you talking about the queue?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you go through the gates, the entrance
so there's the big
gates,
entrance gates with the big plaque that says Haunted Mansion.
Yep.
Really cool.
Yep.
and then further up there, it looks like it's not actually a working fountain, but there's like a fountain thing in the lawn to your left. And
To the
I
right
don't
is the
know.
hearse.
I was gonna say I don't know if the hearse technically comes first or if that is. It's kind of at the same spot.
Yep.
You round the bend, you go past the front door.
And you're at the pet cemetery,
cemetery.
the one part of the pet cemetery.
Mhm. And then you go past the crypts in the back.
Yep.
Rest in peace, crypts. They're no longer there. Zigzag your way around the queue that is also no longer there. And then
You're on the front porch.
There's my fun little thing that probably is not something that's in there, but I always like to point out. There's a tiny little mini looking haunted mansion-esque building or like haunted house-esque building on the side of the wall in the back of the queue of the back of the facade that houses like a cast member phone.
Oh,
I love that little thing. It
Sure.
almost looks like a
You've ever
birdhouse.
Pointed that out to me. We need to see this next time.
I'll point it out to you for sure. I don't know why, but it just gives me so much joy.
That sounds wonderful.
Oh, in between the little birdhouse kind of.
I love how this is just your attractions. You're just going.
Yeah, I'm just going. We forgot about all of the tombstones along the back wall behind the crypts.
Like on the mountain.
yes, that
that
are
the train goes
also
under.
sadly no longer there. And then we
Okay.
go around, go in the front door.
Yeah, you're along the front like porch. You go into the foyer, which has the crazy door and the chandelier and the narrator.
We should mention
Hmm.
that before you get in the front door, if you look off to your right, behind the hearse is another one of my funny favorite things. There's a bird bath with a cat in the middle of the bird bath, like it's waiting for the birds to come so he can catch them.
I feel like you know too much about this attraction. I'm just saying.
That's heresy.
All right.
You never know enough too
So then
much.
when you get into the stretching room, there's all of the like gargoyles holding the candles and the stretching room portraits and all of that good stuff. And it has no
And-
windows and
and then
no
you're in
doors.
the hallway.
And then you're in the hallway.
Is that what it was? That what we were supposed
How
to
far
describe?
down the hallway do you
that
want us to
was
go?
wonderful.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yes.
James is like, I had like 3 of those things on my list.
You guys went to above and beyond.
Something like that. Yes. All right. Last question. As promised, I am lost in the park.
Oh, it's been a while.
It has been. So, back by popular demand. So, I am drinking a Boysen Apple Freeze
Ooh, that sounds so good.
and heading north. I
Oh,
do
no.
have to weave a little bit, pathways, crowds, all of that other stuff. But I basically go until I can't go north anymore. I've run into an attraction, but I'm not interested in riding that right now. I've got a mobile order I got to pick up. So I turn east and I just keep going down until I run into my final destination where that mobile order is waiting for me.
I'm so lost. I don't know the directions of the park at all.
Okay, so I'm going
Why don't you say right and left, James?
I'm going north is the best way I can
So
describe
north
it
is
from
towards the castle.
from my Boysen Apple Freeze.
Okay.
And I go until I hit an attraction, weaving out in and out of people. But it's like the path is done here. I take a right, and then I keep on going until I reach my final destination where my mobile order is waiting for me.
The Jolly Holiday?
Funny enough, I could get a cheesy garlic pretzel bread where I started and where I am now.
Oh, you're at Edelweiss.
Yeah, across from the Matterhorn.
Okay.
Yeah. So you started at Maurice's and you ended at Edelweiss. Snacks.
Well,
He was sad that he didn't pick up he had time to really think about that cheesy garlic pretzel bread and was regretting.
Well, now
His
I
choice
want
of
the
not
cheesy
picking it
garlic
up.
pretzel bread. For one of our dinners one of these nights, we should try to recreate that because you can get a pretzel loaf and then put like some cheesy
Oh, there you
garlic stuff
go.
in there. I mean, it could
There
be
you
good.
go.
I just want to eat my cheesy garlic pretzel bread.
Dang, I'm
Did
so
you like
glad
it?
that you told us about the cheesy. I was so lost with the north, east, west, south. We didn't even go two of those directions, but I was still lost.
You were even more lost than I was.
I was even more lost than you were.
Yep. But anyway, I'm gonna enjoy.
I don't even know if it was right, but
I mean, we'll find out soon enough, won't we?
Yes, we'll find out.
I'm gonna enjoy my cheesy garlic pretzel bread. Maybe Teresa and Tag will have it with me, but that comes after our discussion topic.
Well, this week for our discussion topic, we are joined by Christopher W., who was a former Walt Disney World ambassador and is on the board of the Walt Disney Hometown Museum. We met Christopher when we were in Marceline earlier last year. So welcome to the show, Christopher.
Well, thanks so much. It's great to be with you, Teresa Tag. What an honor. Truly, I'm excited. And to think that it all started in Marceline, right? Mm-hmm. Over pizza and cannolis, I think.
Yes, it was.
At the Marceline Pizza Company. That's a little plug for them. But man, oh man, what a great place to say we've met, right?
Seriously.
And we've been to the Marceline Pizza Company twice, and both times has been amazing.
Yes.
So if you're ever in Marceline, definitely check them out.
Yeah, the owner of that establishment actually worked on the college program. She worked at Epcot.
Really?
So, I mean, Disney roots go deep in Marceline. So, yeah.
Wow,
that's pretty cool.
See, dropping stuff already that we didn't know.
All sorts of fun little nuggets of information. So before we get into Marceline and your time as an ambassador and at Walt Disney World, can you tell us about your Disney story? What kind of got you interested in the company and the parks?
You know, it's such a big question. I could probably go down a lot of little rabbit holes, but I'll just say this. I grew up in South Carolina, so it was quasi-convenient, I guess, for my family to drive down to Orlando. I don't remember a time when I didn't know Disney. Like, it's just, Disney has always been. The first movie that I ever saw in a theater was The Fox and the Hound, and I think I was like 4 years old when that came out. I remember the Disney Channel. There were all Disney was just always present in my life. And I became really obsessed specifically with Disney animation. So I was one of those kids who, despite having zero artistic ability, wanted to be an animator when I grew up. I don't know what made me think that was even a possibility, but I read books about Disney and I was specifically interested in Walt Disney, the person. So I grew up with every Christmas, every birthday, I would get these giant coffee table books. Those were the gifts that I got from my parents. And I still have them on the shelf behind me, like the ones that I got through the years. And there's always an inscription because my mom always wrote notes. And, it was always something about, Disney inspires us and we're so proud that Disney inspires you. And so I loved that. I wrote term papers when I was in high school. I remember when you had to pick a topic, and I remember one in 10th grade that was all about the evolution of technology in Disney animation. It talked about the multiplane camera, and it talked about Fantasia and how they use synth and just different kinds of audio visual, the surround sound, and using Xerox for 101. Everything that if I could find a way to weasel Disney into my life, I would do it. So that's I think we probably went to Walt Disney World every 2 or 3 years. And so when I learned that there was an opportunity to work for Disney as part of the college program, just a flyer on a bulletin board in one of the buildings on campus. I went to a small school in South Carolina, Winthrop University. And Disney didn't even come there back in the day. They actually, it was to go to a bigger school in Charlotte, North Carolina. And so I did that. And back then, the internet was just getting started. That makes me sound so ancient, but truly it was a flyer. It was show up to this building at this time. And I somehow figured out how to do that. And I remember interviewing that day, and that's where it all started for me. So that's the essence of my Disney story, I guess, in a nutshell, of how it all kind of started. But man, it's exciting. I get goosebumps just talking about it.
That's awesome.
That's awesome. It's amazing how, just something as simple as something on the wall, like a little flyer, change the course of your future, and took you there. So now I'm sure you've been to Disneyland, so you can probably answer this question. But
I have, yes.
If you want, you can also answer this for Disney World, I suppose, as well. Sure. When you enter Disneyland on the first day of a visit, which way do you go?
Oh my gosh.
Do you go left towards Adventureland through the castle? But we've augmented this question to also say there's 2 tunnels you can go through Do you have a specific tunnel you like to go through? The right?
Oh my
or the left?
gosh, you guys are so funny. I love it.
Well, people started bringing it up.
You know, I will tell you, growing up, definitely going to the Magic Kingdom, it was always you start in Tomorrowland and kind of work your way around. That was growing up. That was definitely the thing. And I think partially that was because I have an older sister, and she probably always wanted to ride Space Mountain first. That was like the first thing you did in the day because it would have a longer line, later. So that was definitely, I think, part of it. Now, I think it just depends. Like, well, what do you want to see first? I think when we go to Disneyland, and I'm married and have 3 kids, we tend to go towards we want to get towards Indiana Jones and Haunted Mansion, and like that's where we're going to get to. But I would say which tunnel? Always the left, because my wife and I met at the Emporium at Walt Disney World. And why not go? Because the shops are open before the park is. So you're going to go shop. You're going to go browse at least, on your way in. So yeah, we usually end up going like on the west side of Main Street and going through the shops that way. So is that a fair answer?
Yeah, that is a very fair answer.
That's totally awesome. And you have great reasoning for you too. It's not just, it's just what we do.
And then it's like, well, do we need Starbucks? So then sometimes we'll cut across. Like it just, there's so many things. But yes, I would say like if I were at Disneyland right now and planning to go first thing in the morning, we would definitely be heading towards Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
There you go. I was just thinking
what about you guys?
Since we always the same way, we go left, we hit up Adventureland first.
But we always go in, at least I always go in on the right tunnel. I don't know why. And that's also the tunnel I usually leave through on the last night. Because I have a Teresa thinks it's kind of funny, but I have like a what's the word I'm looking for?
You take a moment.
I have like a ceremony or something that I do that I get right before the tunnel and I turn around and I look at Main Street and I just kind of take it in one last time, because usually it's at night and I love Disneyland at night, so I just kind of sit there for a minute. And I always say like, until next time, I kind of give a little salute and I turn around and I don't look back.
You usually sigh. That's also part of it too.
Yeah, because it's like sad that like we're leaving and not coming back. So, but it's always kind of like my see you later.
Yeah,
ritual. That's the word I was looking for. Ritual.
I mean, you talk about the difference, and it's funny because again, growing up in South Carolina, I knew Disneyland, and even as a kid, I knew the differences between Disneyland and Walt Disney World. Like I knew all of that, but never in my wildest dreams did I think A, that I would ever be a Disney cast member, or that B, I would ever actually make it to California. I mean, that just seemed so foreign, right? And so it wasn't until after I had done the college program and I'd gone back for another summer program and made a friend who 26 years later we're still like best friends, and he was the best man in my wedding and I was best man in his wedding. And he grew up in Arizona, so Disneyland was that was his home park, and he was like, you got to come to Disneyland. So I flew out again, like before the internet, before all this. Somehow I convinced my mother to arrange this trip for me to fly to Los Angeles and meet up with my buddy. And there were no cell phones back then. It's crazy. But that was my first visit. And it was, I think I flew in on a Friday afternoon and flew out on a Sunday afternoon. It was fast and it was short, but I had to see it. And he was willing to be my tour guide. So yeah, that was my first visit to Disneyland. And thankfully we've been back many times since. But
dang,
there's just something unique about Disneyland. Because people ask all the time, and especially now I live in Iowa, so like I'm going to get on a plane either way I go. So like we can really decide where we want to go, and they just have different purposes and different feels and different, they're so similar, but they're so very different to me.
Yes. We always like to say that Disneyland kind of feels like a hug because it's just so like, everything's just a little bit closer together and it's just not as vast. It's funny because when we go to Walt Disney World, every time we get off an attraction and we go to another, I'm like, I always forget they're so far in between. Like it just feels much bigger because it is.
Let's play that out. If Disneyland feels like a hug, what does Walt Disney World feel like?
Oh, that's a good question.
Is it like a trick handshake or something? Like nope, you're wrong. Like,
see, here's
like a high five.
Here's how I think of it. So people, one thing I want to say before I forget about it is people that have always gone to Disney World and go to Disneyland later on. So their home park is Disney World, and that's what they've known. They go to Disneyland, and they all say that there is that special something about Disneyland. Like there is something unique and magical about Disneyland that no other park around the world has. And I think that's, Walt himself had influence over it and all of that. He walked in the park, etc. But also, like, because of just its nature, it's smaller. It has to be, like, it feels more welcoming and more doable, I guess. Like, I don't know. There just seems like a lot of that. Now, for Disney World, for me, so when I think of Disneyland, I think of like that kind of stuff. And then when I think about Disney World, I think about the immersion and the magic. I will never forget, and Teresa's heard this story 100 times. When you get on my very first time to Disney World, we took the monorail from Epcot to the Ticket and Transportation Center. And then I said, I want to take the ferry boat across because I've heard that's really cool. And coming across the Seven Seas Lagoon and having the castle off in the distance, I honestly forgot where I was. Like, I thought I was in a magical realm because all I could see was this castle, because the castle's bigger there. You know, that's something we always get crap about in California. But you could see the top of the castle off, and you felt like you were going to this magical fairy tale land because you're on a boat. There's no parking lot right in front of it. Like, it's just so different. And so I feel like, I don't know. I wouldn't think of it like a hug or a handshake or anything. I would just think that, like, it's what most people think. It's you're in the Disney bubble. You are surrounded and you're drowning in Disney. I don't know. Drowning's not a very good thing. But, like, you're surrounded by it. And the magic is everywhere where, you know, we stay at the Howard Johnson across the street in Disneyland. And you know, at night when we're leaving, like, you're on Harbor Boulevard. It's a working city, like, with lots of people. That's not as magical as getting on the monorail at Disney World.
I don't know about you. It's hard for me to imagine, like, I've seen pictures, of course, of the swampland, I guess, of what Walt Disney World was before it was constructed. But it's hard to imagine that, like, Central Florida, like, there wasn't much to it before Disney. I mean, just how much Disney influenced, you know, that whole metropolitan area and you know, so many other businesses and theme parks and attractions and other things. I mean, so really, I mean, it would be impossible to kind of quantify, you know, how much just goodness and you know, everything that Disney brought to that area. So yeah, you're absolutely right. I was also thinking, like, what about the people who are listening to your podcast or listening to this conversation we're having? Like, would they agree with, like, do people write back to you and they're like, no, I totally disagree with what you said? Or
sometimes,
do you get feedback like that?
Really. We get a lot of people are like have the same, you know, like, there's a lot of like-mindedness in the Disney and specifically Disneyland communities with who's usually listening to us. But it's just, and that's what's so cool about all the different parks is, of course, everyone's going to have their favorite because that's just how it is. It's either your home, you know, the park that you first visited or the park you connect with the most. But the thing that I love all of the parks, mind you, I've only been to the two, but from what I've seen, well, I guess not the two, but the two locations, from what I've seen is I just love how different they are, and that I just love their uniqueness, even with Disneyland versus Magic Kingdom, just things like Peter Pan. You cannot, like, it's hard to compare the two things. Really, it's the same. The attraction itself's the same, but the queue, it's just so cool to me how different they are. And then Small World would be another one. How similar but different they are. So it's when we went together a couple years ago now, and it's so, because like you said, it's familiar, but it's also kind of like confusing.
Well, I look at the big attractions that are at both parks, and you know, you get on Big Thunder and you're like, well, this is definitely Big Thunder, but it's like not Big Thunder. You know what I mean? Like, and I feel that way.
You're right.
I've been to Paris, and it's the same thing when I went to Paris. Like, by the way, Paris has the best Big Thunder, but I love Big Thunder. But when you ride it in the 3 different parks that I've ridden it in, and it's in a couple other parks, like, you're like, well, this is definitely Big Thunder Mountain, but it's not. And by saying it's not, it's not what you're used to. I mean, everybody gets used to things, you know. I come over and we're at Teresa's house recording the podcast, like, it's just another house, but it's not like my house. It's her house. Like, you know, they're all houses.
But you're comfortable. It's familiar.
Yep.
It feels like a hug. There you go.
See, now he's going to start using that.
My favorite, though, is things like you don't realize the muscle memory you have for attractions until you do them in a different park. So, like doing Space Mountain in Disneyland, you kind of like, you don't even realize that you're leaning into the curves because we've done it so often. But until you go experience Space Mountain at Walt Disney World, and suddenly the curves are not where you think they're supposed to be. Yeah. When we went, I was laughing hysterically, and I'm like, I don't know where because I was in the front.
Right.
So it was just much more fun.
I'm a big fan of things being different. So I love that they're not the same. I love that there are differences. And, a great example, Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway, it actually opened in Florida, but my family and I actually experienced it first at Disneyland last spring. So we got to see it there first, and we knew that the attraction in and of itself is the same, but the experience, the queue, everything is so different, right? So at first I was like, no, why are they going to build that there? I mean, I know why. It's easy to replicate something when you've already designed it, and it's easy to to build, but then it was a totally different experience. So I don't know. I don't know what I'm trying to say, except that I love them both. I love them both. I'll always have an affinity for Walt Disney World because that's where I work. And specifically, most of my time was in the Magic Kingdom. So I was there I did my first college program in 1997. So way back in the late 1900s, as we say today. But throughout all of my working there over the decade that I was there, I was always in the Magic Kingdom, except for when I was an ambassador. And, as an ambassador, we have an office in the Team Disney building. So if you're familiar, across the street from Disney Springs, there's this building that has this giant sundial. That's where our office was. So the only time that I ever had a home base outside of the Magic Kingdom was at Team Disney.
See, that's what makes Disneyland better, because our Team Disney building is right backstage. You don't have to go anywhere. It's right there.
Right.
We don't have a whole little mini city like Walt Disney World.
I will say I do enjoy Disney Springs more than Downtown Disney. And I think it's just the scale and the theming.
Yeah.
So before we got ourselves off track.
See, so I'm the worst about that. I'm the worst about getting people off track. So this could go all night. So you're going to have to rein me in. Yeah.
No, it's all of us. So don't worry about it. So we were kind of talking about this, but what is your favorite attraction?
I'm like tried and true old school. I love the Haunted Mansion. Yeah. It's just the best. It's just the best. And funny because as a kid, I was the biggest scaredy cat, wimpy kid of everything. And so I was terrified of the Haunted Mansion. Even as a teenager, it's embarrassing now. I was scared of everything. And I'll never forget when we were going through traditions for my college program back in January of 97, we went to the Magic Kingdom and we had been told, to pay attention to these details. And they took us on the Haunted Mansion. And I was like, oh my gosh, as a 19-year-old then, I'm like, am I still scared of this? Am I okay with this? And it was so magical. It was just the coolest thing. And I love those old school effects. And I love the new ones too. I don't get me wrong. I think technology is amazing and it's used really, really well when it tells a story. It's not technology for technology's sake, right? Yeah. But it enhances the story. So I love that. But I also just really love just the old school. There's just a feeling and a vibe to that attraction that is just so, it is similar to Pirates. They're so immersive and the story is so strong. And I like the feeling of being in a hot, summer day in the Magic Kingdom and you're sweating and those doors open and you go in and that air conditioning hits you and you're like, oh my God, this feels so good. Right. I mean, it's just the
best attraction Disney does in Florida is the air conditioning.
Yes.
Right. So I was lucky enough during my ambassador experience, we have the ability to just kind of stick our noses in a lot of random places. And so we were fortunate enough to do a backstage tour of the Haunted Mansion, which was so cool. And then later they invited us back to work with them for a day. So we got to wear the costumes and so I had this whole experience of getting to, recite the monologue when you're in the stretching room. And it was super cool. So awesome. that attraction and that experience has a very special place in my heart. I just think it's so cool. It's so cool. But then I was also thinking about that question of what's your favorite attraction? I mean, there's so many good attractions, right? There's so many cool ones. And, my job as an ambassador was to really, help people understand that they're more than just rides. Like, what is the story, and why they're compelling, and why they have that ability to like make us feel something, right? And so when I served as a Walt Disney World ambassador in 2005, that was the 50th anniversary of Disneyland. And so the big emphasis there, if Disneyland was your park, then that was the happiest homecoming on earth, is what they called it. And for the rest of the parks around the world, we called it the happiest celebration on earth. So we celebrated by giving gifts to each other, to our sister parks. So Walt Disney World, each park got something new. So in the Magic Kingdom, we had this beautiful stage show called Cinderellabration that originated in Tokyo. So that was our gift from Tokyo. From Disneyland Resort, we got Soarin', which is still kicking, but that's when that opened in 2005. And it opened it was called Soarin', but it was still the Soarin' over California film.
Gotcha.
At the time. And then at what was then the Disney MGM Studios, received a car stunt show called Lights, Motors, Action that had originated at Disneyland Paris. So we had all these things coming in. And then at Disney's Animal Kingdom, there were actually two things. One during the year was from Walt Disney Imagineering, and it was this roaming character, Lucky the dinosaur, which is pretty cool.
I remember Lucky.
You remember Lucky?
Lucky was in DCA for a while.
He was. But yeah, so we got to introduce Lucky to guests at Disney's Animal Kingdom. And then that was also the year that we were building Expedition Everest. So it didn't open in 2000, didn't open until early 2006. But so those were the things that I talked about over and over and over. And there were 3 of us ambassadors that year. And I mean, there was so much going on. It was a very exciting time for the company. And I could probably still recite the whole presentation because we said it so many times. I remember the slides we used. I remember the music. Like it was just pretty exciting.
I mean, the 50th anniversary was really amazing.
I did not know. I love that. I did not know that there was like the parks gave gifts to Disney, to the different parks.
Yeah, and we had really this, cool. and we had this really cool like medallion on top of Cinderella Castle. So you have to look this up.
Yeah.
Later, it was kind of like a mosaic, but it like rotated, so you could like it had all the castles would like rotate through. It was really, really cool. We had golden decorations on Cinderella Castle. Like it was beautiful. Like I was really like, he's looking it up now, isn't he? He's
I always.
He can't.
2005 Cinderella Castle. But, wow. And so like I'll send you some photos, like if you want to put in attached to an Instagram post or something. But our team photo is in front of that castle. We wanted that to be like our moment that was captured.
That's gorgeous. We're looking at it right now. It
was really, really cool, very unique. So
what I love is that the other parks celebrated that it wasn't their anniversary, but they were celebrating the other park's anniversary. So like, I feel bad that like other parks didn't celebrate Walt Disney World's 50th, and that just stuff like that. It's like, oh, I wish we could. I don't know.
Don't get me started, Teresa.
Yeah.
Yeah, we won't go there.
No,
but I will tell you.
That's such a cool idea. I love it.
I will tell you that when the celebration kicked off. So obviously the 50th anniversary was July 17th, but the celebration kicked off on both coasts on 05/05/05. So that was our that date was, we talked about it it's all leading up to 05/05/05. Easy date to remember. But we actually had a simulcast. So we had like in front of Sleeping Beauty Castle at Disneyland, in front of Cinderella Castle at Walt Disney World, we could see them, they could see us, since there were different presentations going on. So we had Wayne Brady, and we had some different Broadway stars who performed at Disneyland. It was Christina Aguilera and Julie Andrews, who was the official ambassador for that ceremony or for that celebration. And interestingly enough, it's not this way anymore, but back in the day, all the different parks ambassadors had different pins. We had it was all different. But for some reason, when Julie Andrews was doing this photo shoot, she has the Walt Disney World ambassador pin. Don't know why, but like you can see it in the photos. This is the pin she's wearing, and that's the Walt Disney World one. So
interesting.
Yeah. So very, very cool. But
wow,
I love that. I just cannot get over that. All like that. It was like it wasn't just the one park, that it was all the parks celebrating. the history of.
No, they had to be really
That's so
really
cool.
specific, right?
Yeah.
Because like if we saw Mickey on the screen in Disneyland, Mickey was of course not around in Florida, right? So it was all divided up. So
That's
it was really cool. There was
That's
a lot
awesome.
of thought given into how to coordinate that event.
What I'd like of all, I mean, I'm sure there's also amazing other years to have been an ambassador, but what a cool year for you to have been an ambassador, to be a part of all that and like that big like, come on, how cool.
I think everybody kind of has like their thing, right? Like everybody has like something that is new or you know that is unique about their year, and for us being a part of that, I think it was really special. We kicked off the year, the first day of the year. The happiest homecoming on earth was a featured float in the Tournament of Roses parade, and they wanted representation from all the parks. And so I got to be a part of that experience, cool. Riding on the float. And I mean, what's more exciting than that, right? Yeah. I
for
think
your first day too.
Right. First day on the job. And again, I think it just goes back to this idea of like, you know, 2 months before that, I was a guest service manager in Adventureland Pirates. Like that was my job. I was just a normal person, normal cast member, just doing my thing. And then to get kind of elevated into this opportunity, I still pinch myself thinking about it. And it's been like almost 20 years.
So I kind of want to talk about this because I don't think that we talked about this with Robin very much. But I'm curious about it. So what was kind of the process to go from being a plain old cast member, a known person, to getting to be your first day at as an ambassador?
Yeah, well, I will tell you that, gosh, it is such a process to get there, and I found myself in circles of like really great dedicated cast members. And so I always knew people who were applying, like for the several years before I actually went for it. I always knew people, and it was like, oh, like, can you imagine what it would be like to actually get that? And so I applied for it 2003, in the fall of 2003, to be 2004. And I did not make it past the first round. And I mean, I wasn't really shocked by that because I know many people go year after year after year, and some people never get past that first round. And so it wasn't something that upset me by any means, but I did kind of wonder from that experience, like, well, what are they looking for? And so if you talk to anyone who's been in the role, we'll always kind of say the same thing, which is like, be yourself. And if it's the right year, if it's the right combination of people, like, it's going to happen.
Yeah. Or if it's just like we were saying, how there's something unique happening every year. So if you're the right person for whatever said event is, that makes a lot of sense.
So what is very interesting to me is I can't remember like what my answers were the first year. And then the second year I went all the way and got the role. I don't know what that was, other than to say, like, I truly went into and not trying to be something or emulate something, because I mean, the view of a Disney ambassador in my mind, before being in that role, it's someone who is polished. It's Julie Ream talking to Walt Disney, and she's like, "How do you do?" Right? I mean, and that's not me by any means, by any stretch of the imagination. And so I think when you're trying to like live up to that and say, "Well, I'll be, I'll sit up straight," but like the reality is, like, I'm just a really down to earth person who loves people and who loves Disney. And I loved my job. All the jobs that I had, they were all in merchandise up to that point. So being a merchandise host, and then being a guest service manager on Main Street for years, and then moving to the back of the park for a few months before I got the ambassador gig. But, I just kind of went in there and I was like, this is who I am and this is what I love. And like, I think this would be an amazing opportunity. And and it just kind of worked out. Very intimidating process. So I remember the first round, you're with two other people. They're doing them 3 at a time because they're moving you through fast, and they're getting a sense of who are we going to push forward. And then the second round, I remember they gave you some scenarios and watched you kind of squirm and struggle to try, like, what would you do in a tough situation?
Yeah.
And I ran into plenty of those when I was in the role. Trust me. So the preparation is good, but nothing can really prepare you for when something crazy happens. And I'm happy to tell you some of those if you're curious. But then I remember that the last round was with a group of Disney executives, including the president of Walt Disney World, and there were probably 9 or 10 of them, and they were all like kind of in a row in front of you. So it felt like like you're a firing squad, right? And you're walking in front of them and you're trying to like, what are they going to ask you? And, do you need to know something about trivia? Do you need to know, and I just remember going in and just being like, this is a really cool opportunity, right? Like I'm just, if nothing else happens, I'm getting FaceTime with these people. And I think that's really cool, right?
Yeah.
And so I remember kind of they went down the line. It was like, boom, 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 boom. We got to the end and I was like, phew, I made it. And then they started over again on the other end and they had a whole other round of questions. So I thought I was done and I was only halfway through. And maybe that showed, I don't know, but I just remember how nice they were in that process, how gracious they were. And I remember walking out of there and just thinking like, we'll see what happens, and got to meet the other finalists. At that time, it was still done kind of like a Miss America pageant, for lack of a better term, where there were finalists on the stage and you got your name called, and for the people who didn't get their names called, like that's not probably a great feeling. I don't know. I can only imagine. They were all just wonderful people, like the whole finalist. And I remember telling my wife, like, I think I could have this. Like, I don't know, but I could see myself doing this, and I could see myself, being teammates with any of these people. So for whatever reason, they put the three of us together, and the rest is history. So I don't know. Does that answer your question?
Yeah,
that leads to more questions.
Oh, no, I mean, we're going to have lots of questions,
but
don't
worry, I was jotting questions down as you were going. So,
yeah.
Lots of questions. That's incredible. So, okay, so you've been announced, you've gotten it. Then what? Like, how does that
that's a great
transition
question.
happen?
And I think a lot has changed since then. So the evolution of the role and the evolution of the process, I mean, that's something that becomes very evident when you're in it, because you meet people who did the role previously and their experiences are so different for a variety of different reasons. For example, the role has been based in different divisions of the company. So when I was there, it was a part of community relations. So a big focus for us was community projects. And I was telling someone recently, like, I can't tell you how many school board meetings that I went to alongside Mickey, and I was the one, giving the grant or recognizing someone, or, so I just remember driving all over Central Florida, going to school board meetings and that sort of thing. So again, like, not everybody sees that. Maybe that doesn't seem like the most glamorous part of the job, but it's a part of the role. And now, the ambassadors, for example, they have a strong presence on social media, which is not something that was even around when we were in the role. Thank God. I would have been terrible at that. I would have been so self-conscious all the time, but they do an amazing job. And they just keep you excited and pumped and looking forward to the next thing. And so I am always quick when I meet new ambassadors, or, I usually reach out to them if I've not had a chance to meet them, and just always quick to say, like, wow, I'm so impressed with your skills, because it was a totally different skill set when we were in the role. But going back to your question, here's what I remember. Our ceremony was held at the Theater in the Wild at Disney's Animal Kingdom. At that time, home to Tarzan Rocks, one of my favorite shows from Disney past. Now home to Finding Nemo, the musical, or whatever it's called today. I know there's a newer version. But so that's where we were. Okay. And I remember getting my grandparents came down from South Carolina, which was so cool that they were there to see me get pinned. And I just remember after the ceremony, I got a picture with my wife and I got a picture with my grandparents, and then they put us on a van and they took us to Disney's Hollywood Studios to creative costuming and measured us for costumes right away. We met this gentleman named Glenn, who is sadly he's no longer with us, but he was amazing, and he had costumed ambassadors for years. And so they're getting your measurements and they start making your costumes right away and start ordering stuff. And it's just, right away that started. And then that evening there was a big party. It was a big celebration, and all the former ambassadors are there and their spouses, and they make you give your first speech, and you don't know that. So you're just enjoying dinner. And they're like, and now welcome our new team. And so you get up there and you're like, oh my God, I know all you people, and this is so intimidating. And I will never forget. I remember looking at my wife, and I remember saying, this is a Friday evening. I'm like, if we were not here tonight, we would probably be watching Jeopardy and eating grilled cheese sandwiches. That's who we are, right? That is the extent of our fanciness. So to be here in a ballroom at Disney's Yacht Club Resort is being surrounded by all of you who are so kind and welcoming us into your family. this is just beyond.
And some
this is
executive
a
in the back
wild-
is like, and who picked who? Why did we pick him? Grilled cheese
Right.
sandwiches at Jeopardy?
Right. What a dork, right? But no, I mean, it's like, that's me. And that's
awesome.
what I tried
Yeah.
to show throughout the process. And I've always believed that I think the best ambassadors are those who are relatable.
Mhm.
I think that's what people want to see. Like, they want to see themselves in that role, right? Like, there is an elevated status, but at the same time, it's like, I want to know that this is a real person who gets it, who knows what I've been through as a frontline cast member. That's important
Yeah.
to me, at least.
So did they? This
I
all
love
sounds
how it
amazing.
started like
Yeah.
right away.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
whooshed
Crazy,
right
right?
away.
did
Like,
they
that's-
have any type of like? What was the training like? I'm sure that you were trained on because you were out with the public and being kind of the face of not only the resort but the company. That Disney is very polished in this way. One of the
Yeah.
things that I was telling Teresa, and I've said this a bunch of times, is I kind of yearn for the days when Disney wasn't as polished and it was more real.
Sure.
Because some of the times they've done things that you can tell, like the Christmas parade and stuff, like everybody who's on the Christmas parade is reading off of a prompter and they're asking, Teresa, what's one of your family traditions or whatever, and like it's all scripted. And so
Right.
because Disney is very protective of their image.
Yeah.
So what was the process for that, or was there a process for that?
Yes. Let me go to the side first, and then
Sure.
I'll come back to that. What you described is what I love so much about Marceline, because Marceline is the real unscripted,
Mhm.
let's do this, right? And so getting to interview Floyd Norman at the gala, who is just he's amazing. And he was like, I do these things all the time. Ask me whatever you want. And so like there was so much fun and so much freedom to be able to just talk to him like like a real person, because I am a real person. That's what I love. I think there's so much beauty in the spontaneity and the realness, because I think that's what we know Walt was, right? Like there's a sense to his own spontaneity and not wanting to necessarily be on a script or whatever. So I think there's a charm in that is it's still preserved there. And I think like, for whatever reason, I get the opportunity to be a part of events there, and it feels very fun and exciting and genuine for me. As far as the training for ambassador, you're right. There is a lot of training, but there is never enough training. So I will tell you that I constantly got feedback, and I think that's something that was probably really good for me in my development. That I had to get used to like getting constant feedback about things that you're doing or what you're saying or how you stand or how you acknowledge people or give attention to people and that sort of thing. But at the same time, I would say like there were times where I was just kind of off doing my own thing. So and I didn't have, leadership around. And one example of that is I was really fortunate to be a part of a Disney Vacation Club member cruise on the Disney Wonder. And so the main featured guest of that cruise was Walt Disney's pal, Art Linkletter. And so, for those of us Disney geeks who study this kind of stuff, we know that Art was one of the presenters on Disneyland's opening day.
Mhm.
And he was a television star. And yeah, I had gotten like, hey, this is what you're going to do. You're going to do some hosting things. And, it wasn't really given a lot of detail, but the day that we went to get on the ship, we were, kind of ran through the whole process that typically may take a long time, but we were kind of whisked onto the ship, and they were like, Mr. Linkletter would like for you to join him for lunch. And we're like, okay, this is me and my wife at the time. I shouldn't say wife at the time because she's still my wife. That sounded weird. You can edit that out if you want, or you can keep it because it's like charming, right? But here we are, these 20-somethings, and we're well aware who Art Linkletter is, and we just had lunch with him and talked about the opening of Disneyland and about Walt Disney, and like just like I'm talking to you right now, except that we were face to face. And I mean, it like the lunch ended, and we went to our room, and we were like, like, who are we? Like, what in the world? Like, this is insane. Like, and so at that point, I wished, like, man, I wish that I had more guidance so that I don't, make a fool of myself. But there was another time where a group of folks, I don't even remember how this came together, but this group was coming from Tokyo, a group of Disney cast members. There were like 5 of them, and I got asked to like meet them for dinner in the park. So again, my wife was nice enough to come along with me, and so it's me and my wife and like these 5 people from Tokyo, and there's no translator, so they did a great job of speaking English. But we ate at the Liberty Tree Tavern, I remember, and I was like, oh my gosh, like, you're gonna love it. Like, the best thing is this, like, it was some kind of a pound cake, like fried pound cake. I was like, the best thing. And trust me, I worked in the Magic Kingdom. I ate at the restaurants a lot, so I way too much. And they told me, like, oh, well, like in our culture, like, men don't eat dessert. We go out and smoke. And I'm like, oh, I didn't know that. And so I was like, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm like, but I don't smoke and I do eat dessert. So you can go do what you need to do, and I'll stay here with the ladies. So just things like that. You just pick up things and you learn things along the way. Yeah.
I would totally do that. That's why I'm laughing. It's like, well, I eat dessert. You can go smoke.
You can go, yeah. You
call me a lady. I'm gonna have a pound cake. we'll meet you for wishes afterwards, right? So, yeah.
That's awesome. I'm
sorry.
What a
There's
unique
something about
experience.
that. Yeah.
I want to back up.
And there's so many of these little things, though. Like, just, I probably haven't thought of that story in years, but just something about the way we're talking just brought that up. And it's just, there's so many little fun memories, and I'm grateful for every single one of them.
So I want to back up, because when we were chatting in Marceline, you were talking about your costuming, and apparently that was one of the first things you got to do right off the stage, was get measured for the costuming. So can you kind of talk about that?
Yeah, it's interesting because they don't follow that process anymore. And if you see them today, like, they have amazing wardrobes. I don't know, like, but we followed more of what I would consider a traditional kind of like a guest relations outfit with a vest, and the pattern of the textile was unique for our ambassador program. So yes, we had a variety of different pieces that we could kind of put together and mix and match and that sort of thing. Our official photograph, we're all wearing red suits, and that was, for me, like, getting to be ambassador, I was like, when do I get my red coat? It's like getting a green coat if you win the Masters, right? It's like, where's my red coat? But we were the last group that actually had those costumes made for us, and then they moved to more traditional kind of, what looked more modern and professional, more of a professional look, I would say, whereas we had a little bit more of kind of the ritual was the word that you used earlier, Teg, but it's more of that traditional kind of vibe. And I loved it. I'm so, like, I think everyone that I see today, they look amazing, but I'm really glad that we still had those costume pieces. And we do have some costumes on display there in the Walt Disney Hometown Museum in Marceline. And sometimes people think it's funny because I'm like, well, those things were made specifically for me, so they're mine. And they could either sit in my closet collecting dust, or we can display them and share a little bit more about the program and about the story. So grateful for the opportunity to share those with people and have them see those, even if they don't really understand what they're looking at. Hopefully they'll read and pick up a little bit about the ambassador program and its relevance to the whole Disney story.
That's so sad. Like, I can appreciate.
Let's not be sad. No.
But like, I can appreciate like updating, as the times go on. But I think that, I don't know, to me, there's something like classic about it. Like, like some things, like, it doesn't matter how old it is, like, it's still really cool. And I think I was surprised because one of the things we saw in Marceline was they talked about the costuming of the ambassador, the tour guides.
Oh, yeah.
What was the presentation?
That presentation was Sandy. Yeah.
The presentation was tour guides. Yeah.
Tour guides. And they talked, like, I did not realize that the tour guide outfit that we know today that we think of so clearly as like the plaids, like, has only been around for, it's more recent. It wasn't like, for some reason in my mind, it had been around since Walt, like bestowed upon his genius this outfit.
Yeah.
And so I don't know, I guess I thought for like the ambassador it'd be very similar, where it was just something that like, it was the tradition, and that is the traditional outfit, and like that is it forever. But you're right. I'm looking at some photos and it's more contemporary.
What I think is so cool about the ambassador program is that when it started, and I have I'm so excited to say this. I have had the opportunity to meet Julie Reen Castelletto, and I have had the opportunity to meet Connie Swanson, who followed Julie. So they were the only two ambassadors, Disneyland, obviously, who were ambassadors while Walt was still alive. Walt actually passed away during Connie's term.
Yeah.
And so there were only two of them that actually worked alongside him and actually got to do the job, which was take work off of his plate and give him, the ability to focus on other things, because everybody wanted his time. Everybody wanted tours of the parks and that sort of thing. So, but I love thinking about how this program has evolved, because in the beginning it was only open to single women, and that was who was eligible. I mean, it really was. They called her Miss Disneyland. It was very specific, and over time it expanded to allow for men, and I'm really glad they did, right? Because I would not have had that job otherwise. And we moved from a one person to a team model, and I love that the program has evolved and has looked so vastly different than that original. I think it's a beautiful thing about Disney that there is so much heritage, there's so much tradition, but it's packaged in different ways through different times. And I just think that's really, really cool, because, you could go on an attraction like, let's say, Radiator Springs Racers, and there's nothing that's like classic about that, but it's still Disney, and you still feel that, and you still know it. And I think a lot of it has to do with just the amount of attention to detail and the amount of love and care and story put into it. Like, that's Disney. It's not necessarily what kind of vehicle you're in, or, that sort of thing. Or maybe the animatronic is newer, the Yeti continues to evolve at the Matterhorn, for example, but it's like, it's still Disney, but it's taking advantage of and being mindful of the audience and the guest and who's going to be there, and can guests see themselves in that. So I appreciate that. I really do. I'd mentioned that I worked at the Emporium at the Magic Kingdom for many, many years. And I was actually many, many years, 4 years. That sounds like a lot. But when I was working there in 2001 was when we actually opened an expansion where there used to be a little center street and there were flower carts. And so they filled that in and made it kind of an expansion to the store. And so many people I would talk to guests every day, like, where are those flower carts and why did they do this? And we missed that. We used to come and take family pictures there every year so we could see how people were growing. And it just shows like how much people really pay attention to like every little detail, and they want things to be the same. But I mean, that was never Walt's philosophy, for things to stay the same. He always said that things, were going to change and grow. And he even talked about the plants at Disneyland, right? He said it's going to be more beautiful, like the more plants that continue to grow. But change is a part of life, and change is a part of Disney. And so I hope that people can still see like the heart and the essence, because I don't think that magic is gone by any means. It sometimes looks different. That's a good thing.
Yeah. I feel like it's a very sore subject for me right now. Because
Lord, now you've opened a can of worms.
No, I won't spend too much time on it. They're doing some work right now at Disneyland, and they cut down a bunch of the historic trees, and it's really hurting my heart. But I know it's to make it more beautiful and to extend the queue.
Are they gonna make coasters out of them? Do you know?
They might. I was at that panel at D23.
Were you?
Yes, I was.
Oh my gosh!
I was so excited. Which one did you get?
I got California Pepper Tree, which is from Goofy's Playhouse and Mickey's Toontown.
Ooh, I don't
Teresa
remember.
got something from the Autopia, and she's like, of all the places, the Autopia.
Because people got some of the Pirates tree.
Yes,
I saw that the Toontown tree, trees from Toontown was there too. I'm like, that's so cool. And Autopia's lower on my list of favorite attractions. So I've just pretended in my mind that it was one of the opening day Disneyland trees that I now have.
But I will say,
you can just scratch it out, carve it out in the tree, and carve your own.
I just want to reiterate this because I thought she so beautifully said it. We had Terry Hardin on a while ago, and she wonderful person with her, so generous with her time and talents and everything. We've seen her at Disneyana and everything, and we always say hi to her, and she's always so welcoming. But one of the things that she said that I will like, that sticks with me when you talk about change and stuff like that, is that, at Disneyland specifically, there's only so much, that's stuff that Walt did, right? That Walt touched, that Walt did. So you can't, you want it to change and evolve, but every time you take away something that Walt touched, like there's never bringing that back. Like it's just gone. And so it's a balance of, you don't want it to be a museum because, I joke with people sometimes and I say, knowing how Walt was, if he was still alive today, which he wouldn't be, but if he had stayed alive a long time, some of the things that we hold near and dear today probably wouldn't be there. He probably would have gotten rid of like the Jungle Cruise and put something else there because he was always doing the next thing. He wasn't afraid to move on to the next thing and wipe out something and build something new. So, like we hold dear the Enchanted Tiki Room. That wouldn't still be there if Walt was still alive for the next 20, 30 years after his death. A Great Mo's Mr. Lincoln is still there and people like really wanted to stay. But Walt probably would have done something different with that. So we have to remember that, yes, we want to keep those things that make Disneyland. But at the same time, you're absolutely right that you've got to like allow things to change and grow and evolve because it's, we love this place, but if it was the same Disneyland from 1966, like we wouldn't want to go as much. Like, you know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, I think that experimentation, some things are better than others, right? When they replace something or change something, and I always want people to like give things a chance, right? Like let's give the Imagineers a chance. Like they're brilliant people, and I truly believe their intent is right. So whenever whenever things change, and it's like, oh my gosh, they're going to give a new show to the Country Bear Jamboree, and it's like, let's just be hopeful. Like let's hope that like those characters will live on with kids who wouldn't be interested in the show that's been running, for all of my life, that I have the record album and that means so much to me. Like that, like I'm okay with that. Like let's give it a chance. And another example that I use, my kids think this is hilarious, but when I first started on the college program, my first job was as a merchandise host in Tomorrowland. So I worked at Mickey's Star Trader, and I loved that because whenever I would tell, when I first found out that's where I was going, everybody was like, is that the one that the People Mover goes through? I'm like, yes, that's the shop that the People Mover goes through. So that's how people knew it. It's like the People Mover shop. But I remember when I worked there in 1997, we sold cigarettes there. Like that, like I actually sold cigarettes to people.
Wow.
So again, it just shows you how things change. And in that case, I'm glad that we don't sell those in the park anymore. So that's good.
Another one I think about too was I don't know how to say this. The only word coming to mind is outrage when they announced that they were going to be making changes to Small World and adding Disney characters into Small World. Now, if you
nobody even cares.
No, they fit in so seamlessly, and so many kids get so excited to like point out that there's Cinderella, or there's Aladdin and Jasmine, or whatever. It's almost like a game now because you're kind of on the hunt trying to like pick them out because they blend in so well with the original.
What do you think of the Adventureland Treehouse?
Yeah, that's another good point.
They did a great job with that. People were worried. I mean, what do you think now? Because I know you were concerned because they took the thing and the sight lines.
Yeah, the sight lines is still a thing, but I like the treehouse itself.
There are things that all of us have as Disney lovers that are just like important to other personal things to us, right? Mm-hmm. So I get it. I totally get
Christopher,
it.
What's your thing? What's your thing?
Oh my gosh. You
put yourself out there, so I had to jump on it.
I'm trying to think like what would be, I look back on pictures of Epcot, like the first time that I went to Epcot was in 1985. So I was either like 7 or 8 years old, and just the attractions of that time, Horizons, World of Motion, like I love those classic attractions, but they weren't popular when they closed. I mean, it wasn't like there were like people wanted something new and they wanted something exciting. And so I think probably of all the things that have gone that I miss, like, but again, is it that I miss those attractions? Is it I miss that season of life when I was a kid and it all just seems so magical and wonderful? Like, so, do we really miss like the thing, or do we miss how the thing made us feel at that time? Like, I don't know.
What's your thing, Teresa?
Well, you know what my thing is. I get really very protective of like the big, especially the trees. I was very devastated when they had to get rid of the trees in front of Pirates of the Caribbean because they were diseased, but they replanted them. So time will tell. But this New Orleans Square one's really, really hurting. All of the big, beautiful trees that were in between right in front of the train station are gone.
Yeah.
Now,
And I think that's what I really love about Disneyland is because it's old. You've got these big, beautiful, amazing, just cool trees. So it's hard when they're gone because that took a lot of time for that tree to get to what it was.
I can't think of anything that's like the closest thing just off the top of my head that I can think of that I'm sad is gone. If that's the question, is I miss the pulling the sword out of the stone thing in Fantasyland because I thought it was such a sweet little thing. I did read an article recently.
The People Mover, you weren't going to go there.
The People Mover as well, but like that's another thing. But anyway,
rocket rods. Are we talking about rocket rods?
Let's not talk about rocket rods. But pulling the sword. But I read an article that talked about why the sword and stone thing was that the park started getting so popular that it was hard crowd control for people to see it. But the other thing that I would be devastated if they ever like changed or were to get rid of it, and they won't, but is the train station on Main Street.
Oh, sure.
I would say, I know this is heresy, people are going to freak out because I don't say the castle, but I think that the building for me in Disneyland that means the most to me and that I would not want to leave is the train station on Main Street. There's something about the design of that building that I just love. And it means more to me than the castle. It means more to me than most of the buildings on Main Street, if not all the buildings on Main Street. Something about that train station. I built Lego, like a custom Lego thing to be the train station. I love,
See, I guess I'm living in my own fantasy world because there's things at all of the parks, Walt Disney World, Disneyland, that I feel are untouchable. So it's like they're never going to change that. So I don't put those on my list. Whereas like my planters and my trees, those could be on the chopping block.
Sure. Sure. We had so much fun talking with Christopher, and we have so many more stories and fun to come in this interview. So tune in next week where we wrap up our discussion with Christopher.
Looks like we're coming in for a landing, gang. But please stay listening until trivia comes to a stop. And then you can walk to the nearest exit. Thanks for listening to the 8th wonder of the world, DLWeekly.
All right, welcome back to Trivia Land. Hello again. Good to see you.
Yeah.
Oh, we're not lost anymore? Okay, good.
I hope we found you.
I mean, I've got my cheesy garlic pretzel bed. I'm doing just fine regardless.
We just smelled you.
I mean, that totally checks out. So, but I'll give you your answers for this week of our trivia questions. So our first one came from Michael R., who wanted to know about a special window on Buena Vista Street that is for an optometrist. It reads, iWorks, special optometrist, processes, see more clearly on Friday. What is that a reference to? You both correctly identified the reference to iWorks.
Woo!
Well, Teresa did, and I just went along with it.
Yeah, exactly. Obviously, great special effects and other components that really helped shape a lot of the company.
Yes. Not to mention, I mean, he was with Walt in the beginning.
Yep. Didn't he help develop
He helped
Mickey?
develop Mickey Mouse.
It's a pretty good claim to fame. Our second question this week from listener Ethan K. was asking, according to DisneyDiary.com from a 2018 article, how many corn dogs are eaten every year at Disneyland? Doing the math, it's an average of about 4,500 a day, or 1.6 million.
Ooh.
Mr. 16,000 over there.
Yeah, I updated to 500,000, thank you.
So you and I should have combined our numbers, and then we would have still not quite been there, but we would have been closer.
Yeah.
It's a lot of corn dogs.
It is.
I don't blame them. They're good. Anyway, question 3.
Good.
I wanted you to go through the now closed Haunted Mansion queue and talk to me about the points of interest in order. You gave me a lot more than I had written down, which I'm so not surprised by. I was mostly looking for the hearse or horseless carriage, the pet cemetery, the mausoleum, and then the foyer and the stretching room. You pointed out several more details, so very well done. No surprise. Can't wait till we see the updated queue and get to try this all over again.
Yes.
Absolutely.
We'll see what the new charm is. And our last question, I'm lost in the park. I'm drinking a Boysen Apple Freeze and heading north. You both figured out that I was starting at Maurice's Treats right by the castle and taking those secret little paths going through past the Bibbidi Boppity Boutique until I basically ran into Dumbo, maybe Casey Jr., depending on which way the crowd had to push me. I took a right turn going east and just kept going until I was waiting to pick up a mobile order. And the only cart over there with mobile order where I could get that cheesy garlic pretzel bread, which I think gave you all the answer, told you that I was at Edelweiss Snacks.
Now the question is, I don't even think I knew that there was mobile order there. I think both times we've gone stuff, we've just gone to the window and gotten it.
I've mobile ordered.
Oh. When did you mobile order?
I'm trying to remember which time it was. First time? I think we mobile ordered it the first time.
Oh, maybe when we were like waiting for the parade and we're like, I'll just go pick it up quick.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure we mobile ordered it that time.
It is a shame that place doesn't usually have like much of a wait. So
I mean,
you don't even
it's
need it
much more
necessarily.
popular now with that. Because other stuff was just kind of, there wasn't anything, I don't mean this in the wrong way, but there was nothing like unique to me about it, because it was just like, there were slushies, which is not really my thing, but like, I don't know. It just didn't have the same draw. It was stuff there that you could get at other locations. So it's nice that they have something more unique.
Sure.
Yes, you can also get it at Maurice Street, so it's not 100% only available at Edelweiss, but I like that they've got something a little more unique.
Yeah. I'm there for anything that you put a pretzel bun with.
Mm-hmm. And garlic.
Oh, yeah, garlic is... We frequently go to Blaze Pizza, and I always tell the people, put an unhealthy amount of the roasted garlic on there. And so it's interesting to see what their interpretation of unhealthy amount is.
Yeah, well, speaking of unhealthy amount, we could use an unhealthy amount of new trivia questions, right? That was bad. I'm sorry, everyone. But if you've got better questions than I do terrible punny jokes, you can send them to producer Vern and I at trivia@dlweekly.net.
Well, we will be back next week with more Disneyland news and information.
Until then, go out and enjoy the parks.
And a special thank you to our editor, Sidel.
Please remain seated until the podcast comes to a complete stop and the doors have opened. Then collect your belongings, watch your head, and step carefully from the episode. On behalf of all of our crew, thanks for traveling with us, and we hope you have a happy and memorable visit here at DL Weekly.